Hello, everyone, and that's not a way we're starting that.
Hello, everybody!
That is standing up is giving me too much energy. Let's do this for real now.
Red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather.
All right, we need to do an outtakes episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Survival Check, your unofficial guide to the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Monster Manual. Like always, I'm your host, Zach, and along with me tonight, exploring the streets of the city of Brass, are Tevis, Shane, and Anderson. You guys hot and ready for this episode?
So hot, so ready.
Let's call
I've already taken off all my clothes.
As you should, because it is going to get steamy here tonight.
Can you feel the love tonight?
This is gonna be a good episode.
Insert some saxophone here.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, this is Azer's so much better than the ink keg already. Already ink keg.
Flavor text alone.
I'm just gonna keep this podcast is just gonna become me just making fun of the ink keg every time a new monster appears because they're cooler than them. The ink keg are the kids who are sitting in the never mind, we were the kids who are sitting in the corner of the cafeteria. All right, let's go.
We have our own podcast.
We have a podcast. We're a bunch of white guys on a podcast. No one has one of those.
You know what this show needs?
So unique.
Another straight white male.
Oh, this is going to be a good episode. I can feel it. All right. So, let's actually introduce the monster that we're talking about instead of just making fun of ourselves. Tonight, we will be talking about the Azer, which is... Just look at it. It's like a sculpted metallic, not dwarf, but it's a dwarf.
It's basically Uncle Iroh's ultimate form. If anyone is familiar with Avatar.
If someone built Uncle Iroh in his ultimate form.
Yeah.
With so many abs. But yeah, tonight we are talking about the Azer. So the Azer, like I said, is this like fire elemental dwarf-looking dude with abs. Let's start this off. Has anyone used it? Has anyone played against one? Older editions you could play as them, but 5th edition you cannot.
I've never used one.
I'm going to be honest. I haven't even heard of one.
Tell me, have I fought against one?
I think we have, yeah. Yeah, there was one fight. We were in a dungeon, and then, like, there was a room of, like, lava, I think? Or was it...
No, that was not a Yarg fight.
Okay.
No, not that one, Yeah, it was... I don't know what dungeon it was. I just remember Onyx talked to it in Primordial. And, yeah.
Yeah, it was in the dungeon that was in the Feywild underneath the Mountain of the Mad Fae that you guys...
yeah.
He was collecting all the different creatures of the different planes, and you guys walked into this like lava one, and there was a bunch of chests. And I think you guys decided not to take the treasure, which is probably a good thing because you guys would have got fucking killed. But
yeah, we just wanted to get the hell through that dungeon. We were
that was a brutal dungeon.
Yeah,
that was a brutal dungeon. It was me not knowing how to do dungeons correctly. But it was fun.
A learning experience.
It's a learning experience. So anyway, yes, I have run Azers. This was when I was a very newer DM, so I didn't really know too much about them. And I just was like, cool, things that are resistant to fire that can hide in lava and pop out. That seems like a fun fight. And that's all I knew about them when I used them. But they are much cooler than that. So let's get into it. Let's talk some history. So I keep wanting to say Azer, but it's Azer according to D&D Beyond. So Azer. So let's play our fun Wheel of Fortune type game. When do you think these guys appeared? I kind of already spoiled it, I think.
3.5.
First edition. No, it's first edition. I think I showed you guys the art because the art for the first few editions are cooler than the 5th edition, in my opinion. They have much bigger heads. They have a cooler art style. But anyway, yes. So if we go to 1983 in the Monster Manual 2, so these creatures did not appear in the first Monster Manual for first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, but instead they appeared in the second Monster Manual, which dropped 1983, a couple years after the first Monster Manual appeared. And with that, we kind of got some flavor text, some history that some of it remained, some of it didn't. So in that Monster Manual 2, they are described as a race of humanoids inhabiting the elemental plane of fire. So this still rings true, but I mean, they're not in 5th edition. They're not really considered humanoids anymore. They're elemental. So this is weird. So we were kind of talking about this before the show, and we made jokes about it. But like, 5th edition has them literally in their description saying they are not a dwarf. Like it says, it's a facade. But the earlier editions, they were actually dwarfs who got stuck in the fire plane and like evolved from there. So like it's weird. So I mean, we've seen this before, that like we've seen constructs kind of change. We've seen the angels not be called angels till 4th edition, and them having a completely different lore. So it's kind of this thing that I've been noticing through our history is like, it seems every edition, especially a 5th edition, they've wanted to put their own twist on these creatures, but like not enough to make them completely different, but like just small things like changing them from humanoids and dwarfs to just like elementals.
From an outside perspective on the change there, I came in at 5th edition about 2016. There is so much lore in the Forgotten Realms that they probably put that in there for the sole fact that they used to be these things, and it's just say, hey, they're not anymore. Heads up.
Yep.
Just remember that. It's canon now. We wrote it.
Yeah. You're not kidding. Forgotten Realms has so much history. It's so much. Kind of makes it very daunting to run games in Forgotten Realms, because there's literally history for everything and like 10 pages on the Wikipedia.
I would agree with that.
So like I said, 1st edition, we got them. They're humanoids inhabiting the elemental plane of fire. Along with that, Azer cannot survive in temperatures below 200 degrees. They can for an hour, but after that, they go and die. So they have to be hot. They like it hot. Yeah. They like their climate spicy, extra spicy, if you will. They also love flaming hot Cheeto style.
They like their temperature like they like their women. Murderous.
By murders, I mean. They also love gems, which is true all the way to 5th edition. They love them some shinies. I mean, who doesn't love some shinies? And then there is this weird thing that pops up in Azer history, that I couldn't find any more lore on it, but they always seem to reference, other than 5th edition, King Amamon, who is the king of the Azers. And he's a very large one. He's a big Azer, like large-sized Azer. And he's the king. But he like pops up, and it's like they always reference him and give him a stat block, but like they never say like how he became king, or maybe like there was an adventure that I couldn't find, but like, so yeah. But there's just like King Amamon, who's a really big. So if you want a really big Azer, like think like, what is that? Endgame with a really big dwarf.
Endgame. Yeah, it was Endgame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Idri, the dwarf from Nidavellir.
I was going to wait for Shane to say something.
That was from, and that was not from Endgame. That was from Infinity War.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, excuse me.
Sorry, you're talking to a real.
It's okay. Our viewers are definitely not nerds and definitely don't like comics, so we won't get yelled at.
Yeah.
There's no crossover there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's 1st edition. They pop up. They have big heads in the art. They are these fire humanoids. Can't really go under 200 degrees. They'll have gems. They have a king. I think there's a little information about them being enslaved by Euphrates there, which pulls into the lore later on. But then they evolve a little bit more than some of the monsters we've talked about. So through the years, we have 2nd edition coming around. This is probably the edition that they're most prevalent in, because there was a campaign setting called El Qadim, which was this campaign setting based off the story of 1001 Nights. So the Azer gets its name for the Farsi word for fire, Farsi being also another way to describe the Persian language. So they have roots in like the Middle East, kind of like 1001 nights. So it's kind of sad. I was doing some research on El Qadim and why it never really took off because it was a really big campaign setting in the 90s, and a lot of people played on it. It had like its own peninsula in the Forgotten Realms, and like it was cool. Like it had a lot of that type of lore in it. But unfortunately, early 2000s happened. I don't have to get into it. Kind of killed off that campaign setting. That's like the general consensus is like it's lost popularity after conflicts.
Sure.
Unmarketable.
Yeah, pretty much, which is sad because it sounded like a really cool. I mean, obviously it's D&D in the past, so it's probably problematic as fuck, but it's still probably pretty cool. So hopefully that's something they'll readdress and try to bring it back in the future. That'd be cool. But yeah, so they made an appearance. They were a big part of that campaign setting. The in El Qadim, the Azer were really big, along with the Freedy and all that stuff. Second edition was also the time where Spelljammer came out, which means that Wizards of the Coast is really trying to expand the Monsters of the Plains and really playing with like exploring the plains and all that stuff. So again, the Azer were really big there. We go on to third edition where so it was the Diva, if I'm remembering correctly, that also became a playable race and class in third edition. Well, so did the Azer, and that comes in a book called The Savage Species, which we talked about a little bit in the Angels episode. But Savage Species, I've actually taken a look at the book. I mean, the name is the name, but it's actually really an interesting book. It gave you a template to create player races and player classes from the monster manual. Like,
I feel like that's missing for like 5e. That would be a good book.
Yeah, because it's cool because like there's all these examples like, oh, if you want to play an Azer, here's how you can do that. You can like plug in all these like little templates to make it work. They even showed you how to play a Griffin if you wanted to be a player class Griffin, which is like that's kind of cool. And it was an entire book dedicated to allowing players to make monstrous creatures be like playable, but also gave a bunch of examples of a bunch of monster manual creatures that you were able to play. I would really like to see that come back in 5th edition in some way or another. Like we do have some monstrous races that appear like goblins and hobgoblins and stuff like in the later books in 5e, but
that's awesome. It seems like Eberron kind of leaves the door open for that with its sort of alignment situation that it's got going on.
Yeah, and like Droam and stuff, like the Nation of Monsters. Like it really Eberron came out in 3rd edition, so I mean it's pretty 3rd edition seems like, and I could be really wrong, it really seems like the most wild edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It really seems like there was so many supplements that came out with it, so many different choices that people could make. So I don't know if they'll go that way in 5th edition, but it's cool. At least I think it's cool.
I like that a lot.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I like that because in 5th edition we can like really flavor text anything, but like 3rd edition really gave you like the tools to help you add in depth to that flavor. Then we go to 4th edition, which is another mechanic I wish they'd come bring back in 5th edition, but we've talked about this in previous episodes too. 4th edition seemed to take every monster and like divide it up into 5 monsters. So instead of just the Azer coming out in 4th edition, we have the Azer Warrior, the Azer Foot Soldier, the Azer Rager, the Azer Taskmaster, and the Azer Beast Lord. So
I like that,
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. Like in 4th edition, there was like 4 different types of diva you could play. I want to say it was either 3rd edition or 4th edition where they gave you a bunch of different sized constructs to play with. It seems like 4th edition really wanted to just give you a variety, but in like giving you like a bunch of different tasks that you could do. And I mean, 4th edition does have that combat thing where it has like minions. So like you'd have one large monster and then there'd be like a bunch of smaller monsters with reduced stats. But that makes sense because they gave you so many options to play with, which is cool because I really want to know what an Azer Rager can do different than an Azer Foot Soldier.
Right.
That sounds cool. And like an Azer Beast Lord, what kind of beasts are Azer controlling? Probably like salamanders.
Are they riding a beast? Are they conjuring a beast? Like, is it like a flame beast from their own flame?
From their own flame.
Or is it an animal that is immune to flame,
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's one of those salamanders. Those fire salamanders, those are cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and again, like throughout these editions, we get them. It switches on and off. It's like some editions they're humanoids, some editions they're dwarves that descended and left to the fire plane and then evolved to become an Azer from dwarfs. And then fourth edition, I think, is a little more muddied. And then fifth edition, which is the current edition, which we're about to talk about and talk about the lore of fifth edition in it. It says in the flavor text, in appearance and manner, an Azer resembles a male dwarf, but this is a facade. So it's like, psych, it's not a dwarf. So
oh, you thought this was a dwarf? Psych.
Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about 5th edition lore. So the Azer are really cool. I like them. I like their flavor text a lot. Especially their first part in the monster manual. It says, made, not born. Azers don't reproduce. Instead, I'm just going to summarize what this paragraph says, but instead, Azers create other Azers. Like, they shape them and sculpt them, which I'm guessing that's why they're all super buff and hunks.
Yeah.
Azers just are like, hell yeah, it's an Azer, let's make them buff. You know,
we fit on one person.
Yeah.
That poses the question, though. Who made the Azer that made the Azer that made the Azer?
What came first, the Azer or the Azer?
What came first, the Azer or the Azer? Well, in later editions, we would have had an answer because it said that the original Azers were created by fire giants.
Oh, okay.
But we don't get that lore in 5th edition, so if you look back, that's obviously why. But in 5th edition, I mean, I don't know if they changed the lore. I'm gonna just headcanon, keep it canon that fire giants created them first. Because that makes sense. I think, or even the gods created them, and you could play with that. You could play like Onatar created them or something.
Yeah.
But I think the coolest part of the Made Not Born is, yes, they craft them out of bronze and create another Azer, but how they bring them life is they take part of the crafter's inner flame, a portion of it, and put it in the Azer they create. So it's like they're all connected in that way. Like this inner flame is getting passed on and passed on and passed on. So it's like, it's interesting. I really like that idea. It's kind of like I am legion of Azers. These are all
that's really cool.
Bond.
They're part of like a super organism, a super Azer.
Super Azer, Voltron Azer. And also, it also notes at the end of this that this crafting process limits the growth of Azers, and is a primary reason why they're rare. So, like, if you have to craft something, especially if you're crafting something that is that hunky, like, it's gonna take you some time.
Yeah.
And then we go on to volcanic dwellers. So Azers are immune to fire, and they like it hot, so they're going to be hanging out in volcanoes, which is super dope. They also are native to the elemental plane of fire, and they actually reside in between the elemental plane of fire and the elemental plane of earth, where there's like this huge mountain range of volcanoes and stuff. That is where they're primarily from. So they're like, their terrain's really cool. It's kind of like they live in Mordor, but less evil.
That is awesome.
You know,
Sweet.
I'm just picturing like a fjord, like hot springs, but it's just all lava and just a bunch of aliens, like
just hanging out,
just
chilling.
Hanging out in the lava.
Yes, they are chilling in the volcano.
Yeah. just hanging out, kicking it in the volcano. And then we go on to enemies of the Ifrit. So this is a history that's stayed pretty consistent through all the editions, is that the Afridi and the Azers were allies long ago, and they created the City of Brass. And the City of Brass, a little note on that, for those who aren't aware of it, is like, I think the only city in the plane of fire, but it's this immaculate, like very beautifully crafted city in the elemental plane of fire. The problem is, after the Afridi and the Azirs made it, the Afridis were like, yeah, you're our slaves now, and the city is ours. And the Azers were like, no, then it's like as you would. And they fought a little bit, and now they hate each other. And it says towards the end, which is really interesting, that the only reason the Afridi, because the Afridi are very powerful beings, they're pretty much genies, fire genies. They're very strong creatures. It says that the only reason that the Afridi have not defeated the Azirs yet is that the Azers know the secret routes into the City of Brass. And they fear that if they go after him and try to kill them, that they will reveal the secrets of the City of Brass, which is kind of cool. I like that lore. I think that's interesting.
Yeah,
That was really cool. That would be a really fun plot hook in the game.
Absolutely, yeah. Like it would be really cool to play like in an arc or like a campaign where like you're siding with maybe the Azers and you're trying to like overthrow the Afridi in the city of Brass. Like that'd even be cool. Like a small arc, I think. And then the last part of their history in 5th edition are they are masterful artisans and create beautiful work. So again, very dwarfish. They're really good at creating stuff. They create like I'm picturing them creating like their legendary weapons, like the very rare weapons, like everything they touch is very beautiful. It is probably like very priced well. Like they probably don't seeing that they create themselves. Like they probably create like incredibly well done art and stuff. So, and they still love gems. So gems are cool. They like gems. And yeah. That is really it. And then the last thing is living fire. They don't require food, drink, or sleep.
No big deal. They can't, they don't need to sleep or drink.
Yeah, no. Let me check. I feel like a lot of the monsters we've covered so far don't have to do that. Like the angels don't have to do it. The animated objects don't have to do it. I think that Aboleth has to do it in the air code. Okay, so it's like half and half. But yeah, so that's kind of their history. They're these cool not dwarfs sometimes that live in the elemental plane of fire. They'll hang out on volcanoes. They build themselves, which is cool. They're master worksmen, they're master artisans, and they're fighting with the Afridi. And that's pretty much like summarized what their lore is. So let's go ahead and take a look at their stat block.
No.
Okay, let's move on to part 3.
Podcast over.
All right, so the first thing we always talk about, they don't know common.
Yeah, they do not speak common.
They still don't speak common.
Fuck, they don't.
Yeah.
Which, another side note about previous editions, they did speak common for like 3 of those editions.
Son of a bitch!
But again, 5th edition's like, no, we're gonna make every monster incredibly hard to talk to.
Mm-hmm. So, looking at this stat block, there's one thing that's pointed out that I can respect is it says that it has an armor class of 17 with a shield.
Yes.
It doesn't specify what it would have without it, but shields are only 2, so if for some
15.
reason it was disarmed, it would be 15.
Yeah.
But at least in my opinion, the rest of it is such like an average core block in terms of like it's so well balanced. Average is the wrong word. It's so well balanced. It's just like it's like a jack of all. It's got a little bit of everything. It doesn't excel in one thing. It doesn't have a lot of like uniqueness to it, other than it's like flaming body. Yeah. But like, I'm just like a really big fan of this stat block, right? If you are running into any issues in like a dungeon, just have these guys like walk out of the wall. They're like imprinted in and activate, and their flames light up, and they're just easily to step out. Like I'm a big fan of this block.
I would agree. They are very well balanced. They don't have any like super stats. Like their strength is it's a little high for CR2, but like other than that, like pretty average stats all around. Their CR 17, that's kind of high, but I mean, whatever. They have the same amount of hit points as the Enkeg did. They're easy to run. They don't have like multi-attack or anything. But yeah, let's talk about their like bonuses, like their attributes. So let's talk about heated body, heated weapons, and illumination, because I think those are like what make the Azer unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
So starting with heated body, we have a creature that touches the Azer or hits it with a melee attack. Well, within 5 feet of it takes 1d10 fire damage.
Don't piss these guys off.
That's a lot of damage for early levels.
Especially to like I'm gonna say this. Like your fighters and your barbarians, like your barbarians aren't resistant to fire damage if they're raging.
Yeah, this is a really good barbarian shutdown.
Yep. And same with fighters, because every time they hit, they're taking damage. Because it is every time a melee attack. So a fighter with like extra attack, and I mean if you're playing this a little bit higher, action surge, like you attack 3 times, you're taking 3d10 fire damage.
Mm-hmm.
If you're that dumb.
And it puts in the fire damage as well.
Yeah. I know Firebolt is a favored cantrip of low level like magic people. You can't do that to it. Fireball doesn't work, which I mean everyone uses Fireball. It's a fun spell.
Yeah, it is immune to fire and poison for those listening.
Yes,
it is immune to fire and poison damage.
Its conditioned immunities are poison too, which I feel like a lot of things can't be poisoned.
Yeah,
I also don't think like there's a lot of player characters that use poison. I mean,
that's a fair point.
So it's like a kind of I wonder if a lot of people don't use poison because how many monsters can't be poisoned. I don't know if that's like a thing.
I think it's just like a lack of like options on like the PC. Yeah. I think like every time I try to make a character that like I want to use poison, it's just kind of like
you have to like go
a little too much research that I have to do, you know?
Yeah. There's not a lot of options for almost everyone being resistant to it.
Yeah.
Very underwhelming stat, and which stinks because I would love to make a poison-based character.
Yeah, for sure.
Notice too that like a lot of creatures fire, they can't really. There's a lot of resistance to fire in this monster manual too. And I might just think that because I'm running a Avernus right now, and like literally everything is like either immune or resistant to fire right now. But I mean, they're in hell, so it makes sense.
But me.
Everything but you. As you got fireballed by your own party last session. Yeah. So along with that, it also says a creature that touches the Azer. So like you can't grapple that. I guess you can grapple them, but you're taking damage if you grapple them.
Mm-hmm.
Easy solution: just be a fire genocide.
That is true, and then just square up. They're only resistant to fire.
Yeah, you would
take damage. Really?
Okay. Yeah, they're only resistant because they're still half human or half humanoid. So they're still half. Then we go on to heated weapons. I don't because I play a lot of paladins. I always relate this to paladin. It's 1d6. It's like you have a kind of a smite on each attack, but with fire damage.
Yep. I really like how that is like an actual like weapon dice roll with that. So if they crit, you'll get 2d6 with that fire along with their weapon dice.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing is illumination. They are on fire, so they shed light. They're literally on fire. So that's the thing. If we haven't said that yet, but they are literally, their beard and their hair are on fire. It's just fire.
It is fire, yeah.
It is fire.
It's shooting from their constructed body.
Yeah, it is fire. So, like, they're not sneaking up. There's not going to be an Azer rogue. Because, like, it's just always there.
I mean, you could.
You could. I don't know how, but you could.
So you guys are walking down the hallway and you see a light coming from behind you. It's emanating from behind a statue, and you stare for a little bit and you see a brass head peek around the corner and lock eyes with you, and panic pulls back in behind the statue.
I just had a really dumb idea for how an Azer could hide. Okay, so the party walks into a log cabin. There's a fire roasting in the fireplace.
Oh my god!
I like that.
They settle in, they make them some hot cocoa, they do that, and then suddenly the fireplace just raises, and you see an Azer head pop up from underneath the fireplace. I don't know what situation that would ever be in, but
there's a long hallway or a long like cathedral style like building, and there's just fire pits all along the walls, and if shit goes wrong, they all just raise to be Azers coming out of the ground and like ready to square up.
Right, or like Azer rogues are the best thing ever.
Or an Azer in a brazier.
Okay.
An Azer and a brazier. Nice. So that's
his name is Brazier. I'll see myself out.
Yeah, that was good though. And then the last thing is they have a warhammer. It's on fire.
As usual.
Yeah.
You can one-hand it, two-hand, does a D8, D10, plus an additional fire damage. These guys hurt.
Yep.
They hurt. I also,
for 1d8 plus 1d6 plus 3 damage on average. That's 13 damage on average per hit.
That's CR2.
That's CO2. That's pretty busted.
You can't hit it back because you'll take damage.
I mean, you can hit it back, but
you can, but you'll take damage.
You gotta be smart about it. I mean, every party has a metagaming fighter that has Polar Master, Sentinel, and a Halberd or a Glaive.
That's true.
Don't look at me.
Okay, I can still ram your ass with some skeleton minotaurs.
Hey. What are you talking about? I crushed that encounter.
You did. One person in the party didn't, but you did. Ugh. Listen, just because the fighter's metagaming doesn't mean the monk won't just run and try to 1v1 the big bad of the fight.
I had a plan
to lay down next to him. It was a weird plan.
It just didn't work out as well as I'd hoped it might.
It's okay. All right, back to Azers. We can talk about that all night. Let us move on. So, what's weak on them? I don't think there's anything weak on them.
No,
They're
pretty well rounded, like Andy said.
I will say, if
Andy.
the lore, so I guess there is weakness, but it's not on the stat block. So this is kind of cheating for this segment, and it's not even in 5th edition. But the previous edition said they die if they are under 200 degrees for an hour. Like, I feel like that should be in 5th edition. I feel like that's one way to fight these guys. Like,
is that not written anywhere in 5th edition?
Not that I've seen. It's not in the stat block. It's not on the Azer page.
Wow.
But like in the other edition, it is, and I think that's like, I like those little things about the monsters. That's like, you can, like, there's a way to play around it.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you are new to 5th edition, you don't do any research. Like, without this podcast, I wouldn't have done the research of like, oh, we're going to run Azers. Let's see what they were like 3 editions ago. Like, I would never know that.
Nobody would do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's why Zach's
that's
here.
why,
That's
that's why I'm here. Yeah. I'm just gonna compile a super edition where I just put everything in a really big book of Dungeons and Dragons, and then you can just pick and choose what edition you want to run the monster in.
Oh,
that's actually probably a bad idea.
Do you have a lawyer?
Yeah, it's gonna be Fungeons and Dragons. All right, let's talk about how we would use them. So this is part 3 for anyone new to the show. This is part 3. This is the last part of the episode where we talk about how we can use these monsters in our games. We explore the 3 aspects of Dungeons and Dragons, which is your social, your exploration, and your combat. So let's talk about how we would use these socially. Anyone have any ideas?
Yes.
Hit me.
The party walks into a bustling town where they go to a bar and they're approached by a team of extraordinarily buff players of a game unknown to the party. They'll find out as Laser, Blazer, Taser, and Razor all approach balls.
Oh my god.
Zach literally walked away from his computer when he said that, by the way.
Or did. I had to leave.
Balls in hand, prepared to do combat in the form of
Jesus Christ.
I love that so much.
That's good. That's real good.
Flaming fire dodgeballs also.
Yes, of course. And they wouldn't be any ordinary bar. This isn't just some random town, but it'd have to be somewhere cool.
Like the City of Brass.
Yeah, that'd be a great place to have that happen. Just get approached by the dodgeball team.
Oh my god.
It's called Forge Ball here.
Forge Ball. I love it.
I really like that.
Oh my god.
I would love to run a one-shot where you get approached to play dodgeball with a bunch of Azers. That would be so fun. So good.
All right, next.
All right.
I've been sitting on that one since before the show, so.
Oh, some other thing on the stat block I forgot to mention: they're elementals and they're lawful neutral. I just don't really look at. I don't look at alignment, but if you use it, lawful neutral, so that's going to factor in how they're fighting and stuff.
I can bring it back to a social encounter that we've had previously, which was pretty awesome, where we were in a dungeon and we walked in, and it just so happened that one of our party members spoke Primordial.
Yeah. So
and we were able to deduce that they were there, and I'm sure we negotiated our way out because we left without treasure, but we left with our lives.
yeah.
That's the thing about Azers is because they're lawful neutral and they are pretty intelligent creatures. Like they're not just gonna try to kill you. They don't want to fight either. They just want to make cool stuff. You know.
Yeah, they were definitely down to talk, which was the first time I had experienced that in a D&D game, I think. So that was pretty amazing.
And just so everyone knows, for those listening, Ignan is the language. I think I'm saying that right. Ignan is the language that Azers speak, and Ignan is one of the 4 elemental languages that go into Primordial. So if you speak Primordial, you speak Ignan, pretty much. It might be a little bit dialect different,
Sweet.
but to note. So yeah, again, they don't speak Common; they speak Ignan. Which the idea of elemental languages is always cool to me because I always think like the languages kind of represent like the element. So Ignan, I feel, is like this like burning type of like hissing language, almost like this like kind of
thing. Like the sound of like a crackling bonfire.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Pops and stuff. Yeah.
And then I think Aguan is the water one. I feel like that one is very smooth and all like the words flow together. Wind, whatever the air, whatever language that is, I can't think of it right now. It probably sounds more sing-songy and kind of like whistling like the wind. And then the earth one sounds probably guttural, like rocks crashing against each other. Which is cool. I like those languages.
They talk by chewing pebbles the right way, making noises.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, the social still. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Yeah, so they are. What I wrote down for how you can use them socially is you could possibly have to go, maybe like you have a quest that you must go fix the holy sword of Velkala or something, and there's only one person who can fix it, and it's the lone Azer in the volcano that is the greatest blacksmith of the area, and you have to go kind of bargain with him and try to figure out what to do the sword, because the Azers aren't going to just take coin for it. You'd probably have to offer them something of beauty or some type of gem to get the sword fixed. So that could be a social encounter, kind of trying to figure out what you could bargain with these creatures.
Right. I like the idea that the made not born, but looking at the stat block, like they have 12 intelligence, a 13 wisdom, a 10 in charisma. Yeah, there's no reason you can't run this like any normal dwarf, right? And they even have the mannerisms, characteristics, and almost ideologies of a dwarf, right? They like to make things. They're great blacksmiths. They're great mason workers, and they work well with brass. You know, that's what they're made of and where they're from. There's no reason that, like you said, there can't be like an Azer that runs like a smithy shop on top of a volcano, funneling the heat of the geothermal heat from the volcano into their shop to keep them alive, right? Like worst case scenario, like, oh shoot, I gotta run, right into the lava, and they'll be fine, you know, and they'll just sink to Avernus or something. I don't know. But there's so many things you could do with this because it is just a re-flavored dwarf.
Yeah, absolutely. They're spicy dwarfs.
I also like the idea that they can sleep, and if they do, like the flames go out, so they just look like a brass statue. So you could like invade like a room, and there's a bunch of them. As you get through, all the flames around their heads start to light up as they, open their eyes and wake up.
For sure. Do you think they're like... Okay, you can't see my head now. Do you think they're like Charmander? If their fire goes out, they die?
I would say no. I would just say it's like the byproduct of their workings, right? So like if they're working really hard, the flame gets bigger because they're consuming more energy, whatever fuels them. And if they're resting, it's really small and or out because they're not using any energy at all.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that have some control over it.
Huh?
I like to think they'd have some control over it, being that they're on the elemental plane. Perhaps like when they get really pissed off or like go berserk or whatever, they get really hot and they turn like blue. But when they're chilling out, they're more of like a cinder. If they're sleeping,
I really like that.
They just have like their heat sources just contained within them when they're sleeping.
Like Hades from Hercules.
Hercules, yeah. Okay, what was I just gonna say? I can't remember. I guess it wasn't that important. I'll remember in a second. Probably like 3 segments down the line, I'll just be like, "Holy fuck." Yeah, I can't remember. What the hell? I can't remember. So I guess I don't have it written down either. So, I also wrote that they're like traveling merchants in the elemental plane of fire. So I mean, it's pretty rare to see other creatures in the elemental plane of fire. So that might be interesting if you need to throw in like an actual social encounter while you're in the elemental plane of fire. Because I mean, the salamanders aren't going to. Be I just remembered. So after this thought, I will bring up what it is. But like I think it's a good way of putting a social encounter in the elemental plane of fire because the Freedies are just going to fuck you over. The Azers are at least lawful neutral. They're probably just going to want to talk to you or bargain with you and probably not care. The salamanders in the elemental plane of fire are just going to try to kill you. Same with the fire elementals and the fire giants. But the Azers are pretty cool. But I just remembered. So these are medium elementals. That means they can be summoned with Conjure Elemental.
Ooh.
Oh.
Do you think they would be happy about that?
Probably not.
Probably not because they once were enslaved. But I think like it says when Conjure Elemental, they have to do what they are told to do when they get conjured. So they're probably not going to be happy. But like, I feel like they'll do it. But I guess you could I feel like summoned one to fix something would probably be really pissed at you, but it'd have to do it. But it's interesting. Maybe like a wizard or something has like a bunch of Azers because it summons them, and that could be a social encounter. Like the Azers want to break free from the wizard tower, and so that's some cool magic you can use. I thought of that because I was like, minor elemental, you can summon those. So, I never really thought of that before because usually I'm just thinking you're summoning like fire, water, earth, wind elementals, like these just actual physical representations of the elements. But like an Azer is like an actual being type humanoid type thing. It's interesting. It's really the only elemental I can think that would be like I'd feel bad summoning an Azer because it was probably just hanging out.
When it gets unsummoned, though, doesn't it return to where it was?
One spell does send it back. The other, I don't think it does. So you would just have it stuck in the material plane, and I feel like it would just beat you up.
Yeah.
What's the spell name again? Summon Elemental or Conjure Elemental?
I think there's Conjure Minor Elemental and then Conjure Elemental.
Okay.
If someone wants to look
so I would be under the mindset that like you're not actually taking it from the planes. You're creating one.
Okay.
So like, well, yeah, he's gonna be mad because he has the entire history of his race. He's also freshly made, fresh out the womb of your magic.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's my interpretation, though. I don't know if it's written differently.
Conjure Elemental reads that the elemental is friendly to you and your companions.
Oh, so
it doesn't mean that they're not assholes, though.
Yeah, they're friendly. They might not hit you or like try to kill you,
up, but he won't be happy to be there.
Friendly by the game standards.
It's like it was their day off and they got called into work. It's you have to be there. You have to be friendly, but you're not going to be happy about it.
Yep.
That fake retail. Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm not supposed to be here today. Yeah, so cool. Anyone have anything else to say about the social encounters of the Azers?
No,
cool.
sir.
Let's go on to exploration, and I think these guys have some pretty cool landscapes they can be found in because I'm still going off the basis that they have to be in over 200 degrees or higher. So their terrain and their landscape is definitely going to resemble that in one way or another. Does anyone have any like really interesting landscapes you think they could be seen?
Nothing that we've already spoken of, not personally.
Yeah. So like I said, volcanoes, volcano dungeons, maybe even under the earth. Like if you wanted to do like a travel to the center of the earth type adventure, like the closer you get to magma and lava, there's probably them hanging out. Very hot climates, like maybe a supernatural desert they might be hanging out, and maybe even have a town, but it'd have to be like a supernaturally hot desert because I don't think the deserts right now your normal desert is going to be hot enough to handle them. And then the elemental plane of fire, which is a forsaken plane because it's on fire. So
You'd have to have some kind of like magical protection granted to you or something.
Yeah, to cross it.
I'd say that's more of like a late game kind of like quest. Like you would definitely, I don't know,
Yeah.
you would see these guys later on.
Yeah,
like
I
when
agree.
you get more important missions.
I agree. Because you're not really hopping plane unless you're playing like Planescape,
Right.
Until later levels. Because I mean, the things in the outer planes, and elemental planes will mess you up early level. There's not really much that you can do about that, especially like the survivability of the terrain you will be found in. So yeah, the landscapes. I think volcanoes. I think, in itself, the landscape and terrain, you can use as challenges and stuff. If you have to go meet an Azer or something, and they're not going to be easy to get to, you're going to have to go through some climates. Just because they live over 200 degrees does not mean your party can. So your party is going to have to deal with all those types of effect to actually go like interact with the Azers, if that is like what their quest is. So you can really play with the different climates. You can play with there's that thing that pops up. Like I think one barbarian class can't be like affected by way too hot weather or way too cold, and I feel like that doesn't pop up in games too much. So that's an area where you can finally mess with like exhaustion and heat and all that stuff if you want to do more of like a landscape survival type deal in your game. There's also some fantastical locations that are already baked into the game that you can go. So there's Elemental Plane of Fire, what I'm talking about. There's the City of Brass, which would be a cool place for a party to explore. It is kind of shaped after the City of Brass. It has like a Middle Eastern flair to it, like a Persian flair to it. So it has a sultan and stuff, Afredi, and it's like I'm pretty sure it's like made out of brass and gold and silver and steel. So it's this really cool city, and I mean the surrounding is on fire, so you can definitely take your party to the City of Brass if you wanted to. That'd be a cool location. And you could also, if you wanted them to pop up in a city area and still make sense, you could send them to Sigil. For those who don't know what Sigil is the city in the middle of the multiverse. It is exactly in the middle.
It's a lot of fun. We were only there for one session, I think, and it was a lot of fun.
It really is. If they ever make a Planescape or Spelljammer campaign setting, I'm definitely going to run something in it because Sigil's cool. So those who don't know, Sigil's like shaped like a donut, but it's connected to every plane. So it's like in all those sci-fi films, you see like there's those marketplaces with a bunch of aliens and stuff walking around. That's pretty much what Sigil is, but with all the different people from all around the different multiverse of D&D. So like you can chill. There could be an Azer like talking to like a zombie from like a Mind Flayer chilling with a diva. Like those things actually kind of are plausible in Sigil. Like nowhere else you'd have to like really hand wave it anywhere else, but in Sigil it'd be like, oh, you mean that's weird, but like Sigil also is this weird never-ending city with the lady who will kill you if you break the rules. So yeah. So that's what I got for landscape and exploration. Anyone got anything to add on to that?
No, sir.
All right,
let's go. The City of Brass is pretty tight.
The City of Brass is pretty tight. I really like it. If you're running Faerun or anything, you can go there. I'm surprised I haven't taken you guys to the City of Brass before because I really like it. And then the last part is combat. So we already talked. They have a very well balanced stat block. Something again, not in 5th edition. That is in the other ones. In all the other editions, they talk about how Azers are very communal, very close to each other because they make each other. So like in the other editions, it was much more clear that Azers would be moving in groups, and also like first edition Dungeons and Dragons, they have like how many should appear in a group, and it's like 1 to 6. So I think the Azer, especially if you're on their home field, there's going to be many of them, and I think they're going to work very well together, seeing that they've all constructed each other and they have the same flame. They're going to work as a very well organized troop. They're going to want to get close, and they're just going to want to get close and hit. Like that is how I picture them in combat.
Yeah.
this is also another time where you can use the landscape and the battle map really to your advantage here. Their environments are very hot and full of lava. So throw some lava rivers, throw some bubbling hot springs, throw some sulfur, throw in a bunch of hazards on the battle map. That should be a very big part of this battle because you'll be able to. The Azers can survive in this. This is their habitat. But like I said, in the exploration area, your party is not going. No, there's no one in your party who's going to be able to survive where the Azers survive. Right. So it is going to be against a fight against them. So even though they are CR2, I do think like way down the line that is when they should pop up.
I think they make really great like filler mobs, right? Because like when you have higher encounters and you have like a boss fight with ads or like a group of things fighting you, generally speaking, action economy is what determines the fight, like who has the most action economy per turn, per round. And what I really like about the Azers is they have their action economy plus your melee fighter's action economy as well with their heated body trait. So however many swings a melee person can make on an Azer, they're receiving damage for it. It's almost like they're doing small chip damage, which is essentially what they're for in these circumstances that Tevis was referencing, you know, like in the Plains of Fire and like in City of Brass and stuff where they're more prevalent, but it's also like later game content. So if your barbarian who is resistant to physical damage gets through like 6 to 8 of these before they can get to the fight, and or they're just fending them off for their ranged fighters to kind of pick off the bad guy in the back, by the time this fight's over, by the time they deal with all the Azers, they've taken 40 points of damage, you know, flat, not resisted. And that's big for a barbarian, you know? I mean, like, yeah, they have the highest health pool, but if you can get past their resistances, that's even better, you know? And their physical, their actual attacks have fire damage, so I feel like it just really tips the scale if you're not careful about how your melee fighters play against this. So I feel like they'd make really great, like, fodder, so to speak.
I agree. Like maybe there is still an Afridi that has some enslaved. Like the Afridi is the big fight but like the Azirs are like they're like being thrown at the party to like get through them. I think you're completely right. I think it would be a good fight with them like in a group, but I think you're right. I think I'd rather see them as more minions, more bodyguards, more soldiers in a fight than anything. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else. Landscape to advantage, burn their enemies. I mean, if you really want to be sadistic, have an Azer grapple the wizard or something. That is not even a roll. That is just every turn taking fire damage because they're touching. So,
can more than one Azer grapple your wizard?
Group hug a wizard, maybe if you.
National Hug a Wizard Day.
Just body pile on the barbarian with a bunch of Azers. Just no saves, no contests, just only damage, just free damage on free damage.
It's like honeybees fighting a wasp.
Exactly. Because it says a creature that touches the Azer. So I mean, if you wanted to be a really big dick of a DM, like the Azer would just have to run into someone.
Yeah.
Like charge them. Like then you could they would be free damage because you wouldn't have to make a roll or anything.
Yeah, you touch their 250-degree body, you take fire damage. That's hot. Yeah. That hurts.
Let's wrap this episode up and talk about how we would put our own spins on the creature, how we'd use these in our own games. Does anyone have anything, or I can start?
I do.
Go for it.
I love the idea of like a volcano that's sort of dormant, but people know that it's inhabited by like a dwarven like group. That bar I was talking about where the dodgeball team comes in, it'd just be like one of the first things you run into on your way through this insane volcano-esque like hive city.
Yeah.
With like a dormant volcano. Maybe Andy Anderson's shopkeep is up at the very top just doing his thing, and all over inside of this volcano is just like a society of Azer that have sort of grown together over time. Maybe they just were a small bit of people like 10,000 years ago, but now there's a fully functional society under there that does things, that's just ready to be encountered by a wandering party. And if they piss them off, it's just like, well, I don't know what you would really do against 100 Azer.
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm gonna actually take your idea and add something I've been thinking about onto it. So I think dormant volcano. Definitely a city in there. Definitely like that. Let's say the Azer and this town, though. If I'm putting my twist on it, this Azer and this town or this kingdom are maybe waging war against each other. They don't like each other. They're fighting. I think it would be really cool to have an Azer invasion. But the way they invade is they somehow activate the volcano, so the lava and like the molten rocks are falling down on the town, and they use that as their way to invade, along with the volcano exploding and going off.
Riding volcanic rocks, just
Right,
like
I feel like
into battle.
that would be super cool. Yeah, like they like you just picture like a volcano exploding and like this lava coming down, and maybe like Azer riding salamanders like through the carnage of the volcano as they invade.
Are there
Yeah.
game?
Is there what?
Are there Phoenix in this game? Yes.
Yeah, there's Phoenix. There's an elemental.
That would be a neat thing to have in that invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be cool. Maybe you could do like a sort of Avatar type thing. Have like, I mean, it would be sort of have the different elemental tribes fighting and like have like their monsters fighting, and the Azer can be invading.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
What about the? Well, not what about, but the idea of they can't survive in temperatures below 200 degrees.
Yeah.
What if in this invasion process they counteract that by just consistently being grouped and their natural body heats keep the immediate area at 2?
I like that.
They have
Like
like
a phalanx of lasers. Yeah, that'd be pretty
just a
sick.
flame wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it too. Like, if Azers somehow did become evil, or they had like a very powerful sorcerer, maybe that King Aemon that's referenced all throughout D&D history makes an appearance. Like, if you wanted to, like, I try to think of every monster how you can make them like an entire campaign, and it's harder with some. But what if like there was like the King of the Azers was trying to bring the sun closer to the planet?
Oh my god!
Turn the material plane into a like burning, scorched landscape because they could survive. And that would be like the party would have to stop that. Like there was some ritual that would do that, or like
yeah.
I love that. I think that's an awesome campaign idea.
I know. I really like. I think that'd be cool. You could use like a lot of elementals too. That might be something right.
King's idea to do that is to erupt the biggest volcano at the right time to move it closer.
Yeah.
I also really like the different sort of class ideas from like I think it was 4th edition that you said, like having like a ranger style Azer and like a Beastmaster Azer that are all sort of taking place in these Azer community things that are going on, whether it's an invasion or a living place or a terrible campaign that ends with the evisceration of the planet. Either way, I think it would be cool to see many variations of this specific creature, because I think they do kind of fit well with those different niche categories. Like maybe not a rogue necessarily, but I do think that could be really fun. I love the Azer and Abraser.
The Azer and Abraser is so good. So good.
But like to just like come across like a clan of these guys that all sort of have different things going on, I think would be really interesting.
I completely agree. I just really love the idea of like an entire army of them marching.
Yeah,
that'd be terrifying.
Like in my mind, all of them doing different things, and maybe like some of their beasts are like larger beasts that they ride that are like flaming. I don't know. Yeah, like Balrogs are. Maybe they've aligned with demons or something.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, they would be able to survive in the 9 hells. So like, they might make friends with some devils there. Cool. Does anyone have any last words on the Azer before we wrap this episode up?
This was a fun one. I like the Azers. They're cool.
Yeah, they are really cool. You can do a lot with them. A lot of. Never mind. Go on.
I think so. I like them. I mean, I need to stop eating them on the ink egg. I just think they're very unique and exciting creatures that you can, or on the same CR, like I was talking about last time, Rug of Smothering Challenge Rating 2 is fun. the Azer's challenge rating 2 is fun. I was starting to think like challenge rating 2 creatures are kind of fun. Like they're a good balance. They're a good mixture of like low level but unique creatures.
You could lean on them in a lot of ways, I think.
You really could, because they're good hard fights, they're good easy fights, they're good ways just to throw them in. Like you can throw even the Ankeg, CR2, that is one creature that you can throw in. They're really nice middle, just throw in, put on a table, throw them in. The Azer, you can actually do a little bit more with them. I think they have like a lot of opportunity to do some pretty cool stuff with it, like story wise or quest wise. There's like a lot of quests you could do about like if you like receive the artifact, or like maybe an Azer has an artifact if you go bargain with, or like maybe the crown to a castle was once destroyed. The crown to a kingdom was once destroyed, and it was like this precious metal. Only an Azer can forge it. I think there's a lot that you can throw these guys in as like either NPCs or monsters or really whatever. But yeah, that is it for the Azer. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we get to go spooky, ooky, and we get to talk about one of the coolest monsters and one of the most deadly monsters in the game. We get to talk about the Banshee, which is so fitting because we are recording this on October 2nd. So it is the spooky season, everyone, and we're about to talk about one of the spookiest creatures in the game that we've all had really bad experiences with, I feel like, at this point.
I have never encountered a Banshee.
Every time I experience them, I think I die. So, or go down to 0 immediately. I think there's been like, I fought Banshees 3 times. Every single time the whale has taken me out. And I'm usually like pretty like, it's good. It's good, some good stuff. But I'm excited to talk about Banshees. But yeah, let's do some plugs. Let's sign off. Let's get out of here. I got to go eat some spicy food now because I'm hungry. We're talking spicy. Hit me with those plugs. Shane, I know you want to do it.
Yeah, I'm Shane. You can see me live playing video games and talking shit and stuff on twitch.tv/bringtheshane, and hopefully youtube.com/bringtheshane will be up soon too. And also I have an Instagram and a Twitter, and my last plug was kind of whack compared to everybody else's, so I'm going to make this one a little bit longer, no matter how I have to do it. Come see me at twitch.tv/bringtheshane.
All right, that's all getting edited down.
That's funny.
Anderson, Tevis?
I mean, twitch.tv/Tevisar with 2 R's, TEVISSAURR.
All right.
I mean, I don't really stream that much, but when I do, I play Stardew Valley.
It is the rare
with my girlfriend.
You can find me playing D&D live Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at twitch.tv/20ordie. We also have a YouTube channel, 20ordie, that is posting up all of the videos of our live games. And it's a group of 5 of us plus the DM. It's a great time. It takes place in a Greek Odyssey setting, and it's a great time. I highly recommend you come and check it out.
Absolutely. And if anyone follows our Twitter at Survival Check, I did tweet that out last time you played, so that's also a link. So, boom.
God bless.
Azer bless. And then, as always, you can find me at twitch.tv/farmgoat on Thursdays, because this is a tabletop podcast. I'm guessing you like tabletop games. On Thursdays, I've been playing 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, which is a solo tabletop role-playing game, which is super cool. In the future, I'm going to start playing other role-playing games with other streamers, probably like Fiasco, maybe Monster of the Week. I don't know how I'm going to play Dread yet, but I'm going to play Dread. And yeah, it's going to just be Thursdays. It's going to be tabletop role-playing games. Other times, I play horror games or Sea of Thieves or Minecraft. So, those if you like any of those games, twitch.tv farmgoat. Like always, you can find us on Twitter at Survival Check, YouTube DM Survival Guide, Instagram Survival Check Show, and then, yeah, SoundCloud Survival Check. And yeah, as always, we're out of here. Next week,
thanks
Banshee.
for listening.
Yeah, it's October. I don't know if it's October when you're listening to it, but if it's not October when you're listening to, keep it spooky anyway, because it is the greatest month of the year. But yeah, have a good one. I'm Zach, as always. You're awesome.
Bye, buddy.
Be excellent to each other. Peace.
Stay safe.
Bye.